All right, guys, welcome back to the NLF Coaching Podcast, episode 4. Today we have a special guest, Eric Shelton, former Yorton Cup champion.
Yep, and Eric, I mean, you can see all the trophies behind him. I mean, his trophy collection, we could put mine and Nate's together and he'd still have more trophies than the two of us. So he is obviously a very experienced bodybuilding competitor, coach. I'm going to let you elaborate on your background a little bit, Eric. So, let the audience know, exactly what you do, what you've done.
Okay, so it started way back when. I think back in 2016. I think will be my first, or was my first competition. It was a course in the NPC. That's all I really knew back in the day. Local to Greensboro, the Big Elite Muscle Classic. That was like the biggest show and one of the only shows I knew about in bodybuilding. I just got into it. Fairly green to everything, and then I think in my very first show, I got third in debut and third in novice. So that kind of like lit the fire underneath me to like kind of keep it going. I told my mom, I was like, hey, I want to do a bodybuilding. She was like, didn't know nothing about it. Just like, oh, okay, whatever. But then I think the third place is what lit my fire, just because it's like, third place is like right in the middle of the pack. Usually it's like not too low and not too high. So it's just like, all right, let me keep it going. But then that's when I came across your show, Will, the Queen City Showdown. I think it was like in 2017. A year later is when I actually came across Queen City Showdown in the OCB, actually knowing about natural bodybuilding. So ever since then, of course, I signed up for that show and was just like, hey, let me try my hat over here, see what happens. I think I swept that show. I won novice, open, and won my pro card all in one attempt there. And then after that, that's kind of where the journey began and started getting written. I went and did a few shows in the OCB my very first year as a, what is it called? Of course, as a new pro. My first show I placed 5th. I was like, all right, I'm going to the Yorton. I think that's like everybody think I'm going to the Yorton. I went to the Yorton and I got 7th out of like 40 people. Of course, not where I wanted to place and things of that nature. So then I kind of went through a couple coaches. Then I finally found my coaches I have now, Team Cook Fitness. And then I think that's kind of when I went on an uphill like tear. I think the next year all I did was the Yorton. I placed 2nd. So going from 7th place to 2nd place in a year with my new coaches. Then won my first pro show in 2020, which was the Battle of Gods, which is also COVID year, the only pro show of the year. Then I went on a tear, won to no gear after that, won Arizona Scorcher, and then kind of just been on an upward trajectory until I ultimately won the Yorton Cup in 2023. And I think as of right now, I'm a 3-time runner-up. Knock on wood, I got some right here. I never placed 3rd, so it's either 2nd place, 1st place, or way lower. But yeah, man, I racked up a couple pro wins. I think I'm 6-time pro win, and I competed in Classic as a pro as well. So just kind of a lot of things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, you mentioned you swept the Queen City, and I think it was like I remember. I think it was the 2nd year I'd had that show, right?
I think it was the first one.
First year, that's right. It was the first year. So, you're looking at the guys, and you see Eric come out on stage. I didn't know Eric at this point, and I'm like, where did this guy come from? It's there's some shows you go to, and it's so obvious who's going to win the show. As long as we'll go over this a little bit later, but as long as you know how to actually pose and present yourself, right? But there's also times when some people are that good that even if they didn't pose well, it's still, not that, you posed extremely well then. I'm sure you've made a ton of improvements. It wasn't a case of that, but yeah, your physique was extremely dominant at that show.
Yeah, I think, so I met you guys. I think I met Eric at the Queen City in 2019.
Because he was handing out the trophies.
Yeah, because you were doing the trophies, and I was like, this dude's huge.
Yeah.
I was like, this is natural bodybuilding. So that was my first exposure to you, and just like a high level of pros in the sport. So something I think a lot of people would be curious about, and we always like to kind of ask this question, like, how did you get into bodybuilding? Did you always know growing up you wanted to be a bodybuilder? Were there any other sports you were interested in? Or what's your background there?
So my background in sports is predominantly baseball. I was like an all-conference, all-region player in high school. Ended up fracturing my ankle my senior year, which like kind of made my 60 time go down. I got offered to like 2 different places, one private university, JUCO, not really highly scouted. So I went to school mainly for academics, but background was mainly baseball and a little bit of football. So then I think I always like I did so many different podcasts. So I was just like, the real reason I got into bodybuilding was my cousins. We made a bet. Like, it was crazy. It was just like, one, there's the old heads in the gym who say I got good genetics. And I'm like, all right, I don't know what that means. Like, if somebody walk up to you and say you got good genetics, you're like, what does that? I don't know what that means. How do you see it? I don't see it. Oh, well, whatever. But me and my cousins all said we were going to do a bodybuilding show. So, of course, we tried to prep ourselves. We became coaches and started coaching ourselves, eating rice, chicken. I mean, not even rice. We was eating like vegetables and chicken. We looked absolutely anorexic in our very first shows. 2 of us made it to the stage. 1 of us didn't. He know who he is. He became a power lifter. He's very strong now, but he did not make it to the bodybuilding stage. So that's how I got into bodybuilding. It was really just a bet. And then I think I could hold it over his head to this day that I beat my other cousin. So therefore he'll never get a chance to beat me now. So we're good now.
That's awesome. I think you bring up the point of genetics, and this is the never-ending conversation in bodybuilding, right? And having elite level genetics doesn't mean you look like you can step on stage tomorrow, right? Like, we see guys come in the gym and you can look at them and know if they put the work in, they would have a phenomenal physique because they have elite level genetics. But at the same time as having those genetics, there's still a phenomenal amount of work that has to go into it alongside that, right? And I think a lot of people, they don't want to say they have good genetics because then it's going to take away from the amount of work that they've actually put in. But again, it's still a very genetically driven sport. So at what point did you start to think, I could actually be a world champion? When did that become a real thought in your mind?
I think it's when I actually got with Jeff and Marianne Cook. And I think it was mainly because they were able to see something that I didn't see. Like, granted, I see 3rd place finishes. I see 5th place finishes, 7th place finishes. And at first it was just my earlier preps doing it the wrong way. I was just like, I'm over this. Like, I don't like this doesn't seem right. Like, I just wasn't getting anywhere. I was spinning wheels, constantly getting the same feedback of come in condition. And then when I got with Jeff and Marianne, and then we started doing things completely different, like the way that I thought we should be doing it. One, I learned a lot, and then I actually started seeing what my physique was capable of. Because I think in 2019 was, like I said, when I jumped up all the way to 2nd place at the Yorton, which when you beat, I think it was like 40 people in that one too. When you beat 38 other guys or 39 other people, it's just like, oh, okay, like I might actually have a future in this, or I could continue to do this at a high level. And then I started seeing, like, getting that 2nd place. I always tell people I think 2nd place is the biggest motivator than anything. Because 1, it shows you belong, but then 2, it's just like you're right there. So it's like, now it's time for you to figure out what to change to take over that person. And the fire burns really high when you get in 2nd place. I'm always happy for the person who plays ahead of me, but then it's like, okay, I'm right here. Like, I'm coming for you next year. So I think that, like, once I started like winning shows and getting higher placings, I was just like, okay, I belong. Because I think people can compete in this sport for a while and consistently get, middle of the pack. And those are the people who really question themselves, like, like, what's next? What do I do? Am I ever going to win? Or how do I win? Or how do I get a higher placing? But then I think, like, my whole target was, can I improve? If I can improve, that will improve my position most likely. So that's kind of the mindset I went with.
Awesome. Yeah. So you mentioned that your approach changed when you changed coaches. So what was the biggest change that took your physique to that next level in your approach with your off season, and how do you go about prep that really took your physique to a high level where you could compete as a world champion?
Flexible dieting. that was the big difference. Like, of course, my last coach, I couldn't think of this. I actually did a podcast not too long ago, and I couldn't think of what my coach had me eating that I never ate since I've been off that prep. I was eating butternut squash. I didn't even know what that was. But he had me on a strict meal plan, and I had to eat legitimately everything he put on the plan. Like, I couldn't eat anything off of it. He was just like, eat this, do this, do this. I didn't understand that. I was just like, hey, I'm an athlete, though. So if my coach says do it, I'm going to do it. And I think that's where a lot of things went wrong for me then. And that's why I started hating the sport, because my meal plan would change every week, different foods every week. And then once I realized, like, oh, flexible dieting, I pick my own food, I get to eat what I want, and everything else, just like, oh, game changer. And then that's kind of when everything clicked for me, because I was just like, how am I getting to sub 10%, sub 8% body fat, eating whatever I want? So that's when everything changed for me, because it became fun again. Like, I started enjoying the process.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think it almost brings out a little bit of the individualism of bodybuilding preps, because as coaches, and I know you coach a lot of people too, Eric, you know, there are some people that if you gave them the option of flexible dieting, it would become an absolute mess, right?
Yeah.
Because, I think you have to be at a point where you're very experienced. You've done preps before where you've maybe just purely stuck to the plan, and you've gained an understanding of macros. And still, you know, I know when you talk about flexible dieting, it doesn't mean every single meal in your diet is, you know, whatever you want it to be. There's still a base, you know, base foods that you're going to do well with. But then we see the refeeds that you do, and your refeeds might be pancakes, right? Or, you know, you come up with some fancy stuff. That's where you're different to me and Nate. Me and Nate are like, I'll have some extra potatoes or Cheerios. And then we see Eric just smashing this good food, you know? So, so what would like a refeed day for you look like? Kind of elaborate on that flexible dieting approach a little bit for our listeners, if you can.
So for me, when I typically get deep into prep, let's say, of course, when I do refeeds or when I got refeeds, they were usually when I was closer or leaner for sure. Towards the end of prep, sometimes, of course, at the beginning of prep, my food's so high I wouldn't need to refeed. But closer to a show and we start refeeding, I usually get on the average anywhere between 350 to 400 carbs. So when I'm getting that amount of carbs, it's just like, all right, sometimes you can't eat just satiated. You can't eat satiating foods anymore. You just got to get those carbs in. So I think I eat pancakes every morning. It's like, that's a staple for me. Pancakes is just because I have time to make them. So egg whites and pancakes. So usually I might have a bigger pancake for that morning, probably for pre-workout. My body digests it well. That's actually like my pre-show meal as well. So pancakes is always a staple. I think the Yorton before I won, I had like M&M pancakes. It was just something I made at home. And then, but then
it's
later on,
like Usain Bolt talking about eating
Skittles,
McDonald's chicken nuggets before he ran like the world record, right?
Yeah, I'm not doing all that, but M&M pancakes was the thing for me. And then like at nighttime, I may do anywhere between, like I learned how to make nacho chips with tortillas. So sometimes I might have nachos and throw ground beef on top of it. That's like one of my refeed staples, a burger that I make at home with, of course, lean beef and whatever toppings I want. And there's some Alexa home style fries, so I could get like a whole plate of fries. But yeah, my refeeds, they vary a lot. But I might even throw a Rice Krispie treat in there on a refeed day, just for it, you know. So it just really depends.
I think I think we all have one food like during prep that we just never take out because it's the one thing we really look forward to. Like I'm a big bread guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just love bread. So for me, I'll have sourdough in my plan until I absolutely cannot because the satiety or whatever just isn't there. I mean, I've gone entire preps where I've had bread, and the reason I bring that up is because so many people just demonize bread or demonize pancakes because they don't really understand, you know, nutrition or the fact that it's not. Bread by itself doesn't make you fat. Pancakes by itself doesn't make you fat. You can get lean eating all of that stuff as long as your overall diet is in place, right?
Yeah, I think that's one of those things, like the first time you compete or first time you go through like a hard cut, it's like you think like the food selection has to be so strict, boring, and bland. It's like an old school bodybuilding concept. But I do think more modern coaching approaches like the flexible dieting and like actually enjoying the foods you're eating, it's like it's much more common now, but it also helps with athlete adherence and enjoyment of the process, keep people from burning out. Because I think that's one of the things that like really like deters people away from the sport of bodybuilding, saying I've got to eat chicken and rice and broccoli if I want to be a bodybuilder. It's actually not the case, and I think more people are kind of moving away from that approach. So one thing I did want to ask you about. So you're obviously an accomplished posing coach. Can you talk to us a little bit about your posing coaching business and kind of how you really got exposed into that more?
Yeah, so for posing, it was one of those things. I have a really bad video. I think I posted it a long time ago. But my very first competition when I was trying to get ready to pose for Queen City Showdown, I think that's the fact that a lot of people don't know that the posing is very different for men's physique from the NPC to natural organizations. It's quarter turns. So a lot of people were going to NPC guys teaching us how to pose, but NPC guys don't hit quarter turns. So my very first few shows, especially the ones I did in NPC and early in the OCB, I was losing. One, because I don't think I was ever conditioned enough and I wasn't ready to win those shows at the time. But also I didn't know how to present my body the right way. Like flaring your lats, opening your lats, like just the basic things that you need to know to pose. So then I got really serious about it probably around like 2018, 2019, because I got tired of hearing the same feedback. So when you keep hearing you need to pose better, you need to pose better, you're posing. If you see that more than 3 times and you competed that more than that many times, then it's like that's the one thing that you can really control. Like you can control whether you pose or not, whether you pose good, whether you pose bad, you can control that. Because that comes with practice and repetition, and then that also comes with going to someone with knowledge to help you with that. Because if you're practicing the wrong thing, you can practice the wrong thing all day long. And that's what I was doing. So I really just learned how to break down posing to like the most elementary level I could think of. So even like my posing guys that come to me now, or that's why I decided to start helping people with posing, because I was just like, I started seeing things differently from the judging standpoint, from the athlete standpoint, because as an athlete, it's like, how can I get the upper hand? It's probably through posing. If somebody has a better body than me, I have to try to outpresent them. So the reason I got into posing really heavily was just like, well, what little minor tweaks can I do? How can I look smoother? How can I exude more confidence? Because I was also known for the guy who didn't smile. So if I didn't smile, I had to show confidence a different way and just really command presence while I'm on stage. It does help that I'm 6'2" on stage, but other than that, like I had to show the judges like catch their eye or keep their attention while I'm posing. So that's kind of what I teach my guys. I coached a few of your athletes, both of you guys, through posing to the point where I was just like, hey, this is them before, this is them after, and then you guys see it like, what did you tell him, right? So then it's just like I just try to break things down and be super detail oriented when it comes to posing.
No, it's amazing, and I know I've actually judged you a couple of times at the Yorton Cup. I think, did I judge the year that you won?
I think so.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, at that level, the margins, I mean, it could go either way, and you could justify either decision, right? You are holding those poses for such a long time. When it's close, if it's Nan head judging or Sully head judging or whoever it is, they are going to make you guys work, and I think probably at the amateur level, you can get away with being good if your physique is good enough. But when you make it to the pro stage, you've got to be great. There can be no flaws in any of your presentation if you want to win, right? So what, in your opinion, what is the biggest difference between a good amateur and a top pro? Where do you think the biggest difference is between those two?
A good amateur, I feel like they just have to have an it factor. Like when I judge amateur shows, it's almost like we said, when you see an amateur show and you see the lineup, you usually can tell who the winner is going to be, unless it's a really stacked show. But then it's between 2 to 3 people, usually on the amateur stage. Sometimes there's a bigger stage, but the it factor is what pops off on the stage. Like if you see somebody with really full muscle bellies, or somebody who's super shredded, or somebody who just have a well put together physique, you're like, okay, this guy's going to be a good amateur. He won't be an amateur long. That's usually the saying. Like, all right, after today, he's not going to be an amateur. I think what makes you a top level pro, or I would say a consistently good level pro, is just having all the intangibles and controlling the controllables. Like I think that's the one thing as bodybuilders that we try to do is control the controllables. So usually you're consistently good. I don't want to say like top tier, or like, because it's any given Saturday, we know variables can be off, but a consistently good bodybuilder always come in condition. A consistently good bodybuilder knows how to present their physique. A consistently good bodybuilder basically usually has the right support system, whether it's coaching, whether they coach themselves, whatever that looks like. But you can always guarantee, like when you see that name on the page, you're like, okay, this guy's going to be good. Like if I had to think of a name off the top of my head, it's like Marshall Johnson. He's a consistent bodybuilder for 20 plus years, that if Marshall Johnson is on the roster, you're like, he's going to come in and he's going to be good. Now, whether he places top 3 or top 5, like you're always going to put him in the midst no matter what, until that day and you see him. And the only way you don't put him in the top 5 is if he's off. But he's going to always be consistently good. Like you're always going to remember him like, I never really seen a bad version of him. And I think that's the one thing I always say about top, as we say, top tier, top level. Whenever you see their name on a roster, you're just like, okay, I could kind of bet on this guy looking good. It's far and in between that person ever like comes in completely off. Like I think we all have those looks on stage where we'd be like, I'm not a fan of that look, but it wasn't bad, right? But I think when someone's consistent, that's what really make a top tier athlete. They compose, they come in condition, and they're consistent.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I think one of the biggest mistakes I see when people win their pro card is they completely abandon the look that won them the pro card, right? So they'll come in super crispy and conditioned to win the pro card. Then when they go against the pros, they have this idea that they're going to be way too small and they need to be, and so they come in a lot fuller and nowhere near as conditioned. And then they look worse as a pro than they actually looked when they won their pro card.
Yeah.
And the reality with bodybuilding is that you only have the muscle that you have.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're not big enough, then you got to get bigger. But trying to come in bigger isn't going to benefit you. Right. So playing to your strengths and bringing the same level or at least a better level of condition is what I see so many people abandon. Do you see that too?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, that's one of my key thoughts I have with my athletes. And I actually had a very detailed conversation with someone the other day. I was just like, if you think about it, you also have to I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. You also have to be competitive to your class. And what I mean by that is, like you said, people abandon their looks, but it's also like, what is your strength? Because that's what you need to maximize on. Like a lot of people used to always tell me, like when they turn pro, they'll look at me and be like, oh man, like I got to get bigger before I compete. I got to get bigger before you compete. I said, well, that's going to be a game you're going to always lose because my goal is to come in shredded. Like I don't care about being big because I'm already 190 to 200 pounds on stage. So it's like, if you're fighting the size game with me, that's a battle you're never going to win because you're 160 on stage.
Right.
So you should probably just come in condition. And you can kind of correct me if I'm wrong. It might be like this in bodybuilding, which I'm pretty sure it is. Like the taller classes, which is usually that C and D class, they always have the height and the muscle. Usually that's what wins that class is the muscle, i.e. Magnum, right? The B and C class are usually your more complete guys. They're usually complete because they're in that perfect size range where they're full, they're dense. They usually don't have that many holes. But then the shorter guys like A class, B class, now they have to come in shredded. That's usually their wheelhouse. They're usually the most shredded guys in the show. So if I had to put that to men's physique, the bigger guys like me and Derek, you look at the middle classes like the Nathan Parkers and the Marcus Harrises, they're complete. You can't really find a hole in their physique. As to the tall guys, you may find a hole in our physique, but the size just trumps everything else. And then that A class, you got people like Core Killer. So it's like it really flows, but then it's also like just stay to your strength because Core Killer would never be the biggest guy on stage, but he won the most Yorton Cups.
Yeah, no, that's extremely valid, 100%. Yeah, so I've never really, I've thought about it like that, but when you put it like that, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I would agree with that, yeah.
Like Levi, BC class guy, complete.
Well, Levi beat, if Magnum comes in on, I don't know that there's anyone in the world that can beat him, right? It's just when you're talking about the 0.1% genetics, you're talking about the 0.1% work ethic, you're talking about decades of work. If he brings his best, it's no different to Usain Bolt running the 100 meters. If he brought his best and he started well, he was going to win the race. And that didn't mean the other guys weren't good. He was just better, right? And I think that's kind of Levi obviously beat Magnum in the year that Magnum was a little bit off. I think Magnum had an injury too, but not to take away from Levi because Levi looked absolutely exceptional. Yeah. But when you get that really tall guy on stage that has the muscularity and the size, when you put them up against the smaller guys, it's whoa, look at the size of that guy. It's hard to take your eyes off.
I think it's only when those A-class guys got that dense muscle. There was a guy at the Yorton this year. I can't remember his name. But then when I think of a short bodybuilder, I think of Meshack. And that's ridiculous.
5'2" and has the biggest arms I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like Sean Clarita, right? He's the natty Sean Clarita in a way.
Yeah.
So one question I would have for you, and we've all obviously started at some different point in our journey with bodybuilding, but what are 3 big mistakes that you see people make when they first get into the sport and like things that you advise people on doing differently? If you could go back and restart your journey, what would that look like for you?
Oh man. The 3 things I would change from the very beginning or that I see people do wrong is one is definitely feeding into the hype of, the sport. Because I feel like the sport has a lot of hype. There's a lot of glitz and glam. Everybody sees the stage pictures. Everybody's like, oh man, I can't wait to do that. But then you realize like you're only doing it for that goal at the very beginning. Like I think my goal my goals shifted over the years, because at first it was just like, oh, take the pictures, get on stage, this is what it's about. And then, you know, you go into off season and just blow up. You know, I do that still, but it is what it is. But I think back in the day, I would diet to take pictures. That's all it was about. Like, I didn't care about bodybuilding. I didn't know what bodybuilding was. I didn't do enough research. I wasn't engulfed. I didn't fully engulf myself into the bodybuilding lifestyle. It's just like, oh, I'm doing this competition, and then after it's done with, I'm done with bodybuilding for however long I want to be done with it for. But then I think the thing that had to change was, if you want to be a bodybuilder, you literally have to live a bodybuilding lifestyle. I said it on our podcast. I was just like, there's no off switch in bodybuilding when you're in prep, because your sleep literally dictates how your next day goes. Like, the way you eat now dictates how tomorrow goes. So there's no off switch at any given point in your prep until, you know, you're until your show's over with, because literally every second of the day actually goes to your prep. Not necessarily taking up your time, but just meaning like everything you do during that day leads to that final result. I think too is finding proper guidance and actually doing researches on coaches before actually getting a coach. Like I said, I went through 2 coaches before I found my final coaches. And I think I said this the other day, I was just like, it's no offense to them, I just think I wasted a lot of time my first 2 or 3 years of growth with those coaches. And it's just because I didn't know, or I didn't do enough proper research. I always tell people, look at the guys that the coaches are putting out, look at how the coach interacts with their athletes, do multiple calls with coaches just to see if that's a true good fit. I just realized, like, one, I didn't know enough, and I was just trying to get to the top as fast as possible, not realizing that that's not the best way to do it. And then I think lastly, I said this on the other one too, which I truly mean, this one is like, you don't really have to be an a-hole in this sport. Like, you don't have to be. I think when I was backstage very early on in my career, it's just like athlete mindset, headphones on, not really talking to anybody. And I think I ain't gonna say I missed out, because I met a lot of good people, quality people. But I was just super locked in backstage, where I really didn't talk to that many people and network as much. I networked after the show or either at other people's shows, not necessarily at mine. But then I think last year at the Yorton, it's probably the most relaxed I was. I think when I got to the venue, I was just like, hey, whatever's going to happen is going to happen at this show. It really don't matter. And I just went and shook like almost everybody's hand that I could that was backstage for Men's Physique, and was just like, all right, cool. I got that out the way. Now I could go lock in. I don't look like a, you know, standoffish guy anymore.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think there's something to be said about just being as relaxed as possible backstage, right? And the more kind of hyped up and aroused you get yourself, it could actually negatively impact your physique rather than benefit. You know, it's not like, we've talked about this before, Eric, but we're not getting in the ring to fight somebody. You know, we're going on stage and we're posing for 10 to 15 minutes. There's no combat. So there isn't much to get super fired up about, you know. Kind of stay relaxed, do your pump up, and don't over pump up like a lot of people do as well, because then you're going to be super fatigued going on stage. So I think, like, the longer you're in the sport, you can tell backstage the people that are first timers and the people that have done it a million times. You can just walk around and you know, because of, you brought up Marshall Johnson. Marshall Johnson is just having a good time. Yeah. Backstage. He's talking to everyone. He's laughing. He's relaxed. He knows he looks how he needs to look, and he's going to get up on stage and he's going to have a good time, right?
Yeah, I think that was like the biggest eye opener for me. Like, this past season was my first season doing a pro show, and we did three pro shows, and it was just like the difference between an amateur show and the pro show is like the calmness backstage for most people was like really eye opening to me. It was so much camaraderie and like brotherhood, and that was like, honestly, what made it so much fun and so memorable. It's like only one guy's going to win. So like if your sole purpose of going back there is just to win, like more than likely you're going to be disappointed. But it's like the friendships, relationships you build, networking, like that was fascinating for me. Like just how the community was so tight. One thing that stuck out for me with you is talking about you said doing your research and really kind of know what you're getting into the sport. We talk about that a lot. Like a lot of younger guys, they want to jump in and self-coach themselves and don't really know a whole lot about the sport. I think nowadays with like the social media stuff, you see like the highlights of people getting on stage, but there's not necessarily a lot of exposure to the background of what it takes to kind of get yourself to a point where you're a competitive bodybuilder, whether it be at the amateur or pro level. So could you elaborate on that a little bit, like kind of how you approach that with like new athletes that you start working with?
Yeah, so when people fill out their consult, and I was like, or even like posing people, like I'll go to posing first. But like even when it came to, I was like, send me what is it called? An example of your posing right now, so I could see what you're working with. And they'll send me posing from a completely different category, and I'm like, look, you need to do some research. Like you need to know what category you want to compete in. So I think mostly is one of those things of like, I've done it. I ain't gonna say I've done enough research because I can always keep learning, but it's almost like for my guys, I always tell them, ask me questions. Like if you ever have a question about why you're doing something, because this is how my coaches taught me, is like the only way you can offer me proper feedback is if you know what I want to happen. So it's just like, hey, if I'm cutting your calories and you want to know why I'm cutting your calories, I'm gonna say, hey, well, I'm expecting for your weight to drop or your weight to start trending down because we've been stalling for a week. So now when I ask you for feedback next week, not only am I checking your chart, but you can also give me proper feedback like, hey, one, either I'm hungrier, or hey, the food cut wasn't that bad, but hey, my weight's dropping. So exactly what you wanted to happen happens. But even to the extent of like knowing who your competition is, I think that's more important on the pro level. I tell my amateurs, don't worry about any of your competition. Honestly, log off Instagram, because a lot of people try to do research on who's coming to the show. And for the amateur, it's too big of a pool to find out who's coming to your show until they start tagging. Like unless the show promoters reposting everybody's post or, shouting them out, you're not going to know everybody that's in the amateur pool. But pros, you most likely know who's going to pull up to a show. So I think I've done countless hours of film study. I'll watch myself after a show. I watch other top competitors. Like, all right, if they come to a show, I know how to beat them, or I know what I need to do to beat them. And that's mainly just if they're posed a certain way, I know how to pose around it. I mean, it's not like we can play defense, but there is a certain way you can play defense a little bit, depending on the people. So,
yeah, I like that part you said about asking questions. I think we can all attest to this, but like the best clients to work with are the ones that are like a sponge. They ask questions, they send you form videos, they're on time with their check-ins. Like that's such an underrated component of the bodybuilding. It's just like being regimented and being a sponge to learning and the process of bodybuilding. It's like the clients that fully commit to trusting you with the process and learning from you and letting you mentor them, they always see the best results and end up being the best long-term clients that stick with you because they bought in and they're doing the things that needs to be required to be a competitive bodybuilder. I think that's like one of the most important parts of a client-coach relationship is just having that constant communication, I would say, right?
Yeah, and I think on top of that, trust your coach. You hired him for a reason.
Yeah.
Don't ask the opinion of every single person on the gym floor, or you get people that are kind of freaking out and panicking and they're asking for all these different opinions. And what typically happens there is that the person wants to give a contradictory opinion to make themselves look smart, right? Or they want to say something that their coach isn't doing to make this person feel like, oh, my coach isn't doing his job or whatever it is. So when you do your research and then you actually trust your coach and then ask the coach the questions instead of asking the opinions of everybody else, you're going to have a much smoother prep with way less stress.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's kind of funny. I wish I want to tell the story with Nate when I was posing Nate for a little bit. I want to tell that story so bad, but I'm not going to. You mind if I
go everything's over here. Go ahead.
All right. So it was basically like, I think, Will, you were coaching Nate, and he was like, hey, how you think I look? And I think it was like the night before. And I was like, if I tell you look bad, are you still going to compete tomorrow? He was like, yeah. I was like, well, it really don't matter what I think, right? So let's get it closer, man. Because it's one of those things where I have a lot of respect for both of you guys. Like I said, I posed a lot of both of you guys' clients. And, Sean, specifically, he'll ask me things, and I was just like, what did Will tell you first? Right? Because it's one of those things where, one, even as a opposing coach, I like to definitely say this out loud. It's like, I don't overstep any coach. And my voice shouldn't be louder than any coach. So it's one of those things where if you're telling Sean something, most likely I'm telling him the same thing. And vice versa with when Nate was about to compete. Like, he looked peeled, he was ready. So I was just like, anything I say can't trump what your coach has already said. But it's one of those things where, man, when people listen to other people, like even I think I gained a lot of my clients' trust because after a show I said, hey, let's go to the judge, see what they got to say about your physique. 9 times out of 10, I already told them at intermission what they need to work on and what the judge is going to say. So when a judge confirms that, it's almost like, all right, I don't need to listen to nobody else. Like, I'm going to get this feedback, but then it's exactly what we already know we need to work on. So I think having that trust or having that camaraderie definitely builds trust in between clients and athletes.
Absolutely. Eric, I got one last question for you, because we've talked about this before. We've talked about your longevity in the sport and how the guys that you competed against in the early days are no longer really around, and definitely not still at the top. And you're someone that's been at the top for a long time. You've won the Yorton Cup. So it's like you've achieved the pinnacle. So how do you continue to stay hungry? At this point, what drives you to keep going and to achieve more in this sport?
Oh, man. Whew.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe I'm not hungry no more. But nah, I think there's a couple more milestones that I want to reach. It may not even be winning, like it may be winning, another championship. But I think I started setting smaller goals. Like I think the Yorton is such a huge goal, right? And I think once you do that, it's like, all right, well, what can, and then I think once you do it, you're like, oh, this is great. But then it's like, is there anything else bigger or that will feel bigger? And I mean, I don't want to, like, I definitely think when I won the 2023 Yorton, I was like, I did it, right? But I think the moment last year was even bigger for me than winning the Yorton. And that was when I coached one of my athletes to top 6 with me, because I was just like, we were on stage together. We were battling in the overall. Like, it was just something I couldn't really explain, because I was just like, I don't know if this ever been done before, especially in the same, in the same division. Like, I'm literally paying attention to him backstage. Like, all right, look, we got to make sure you're ready. Let's get you ready. And they threw me for a loop because they called his name first for the top 6. And I was like, oh, crap, I might not have made it. So I was like, at first I was like, and then I was just like, I can't be mad about that. Like, I was like, I helped this guy get here. But then when they called my name too, I was just like, oh, this is amazing. But then it's like, I think I have so many coaching accolades I want to reach too. Like, because I'm also not like a big, I always categorize them as factories. Like, there's some coaches who pump out like 100, 120 athletes a year. Like, I'm not a factory. I don't have that capacity, but I was like, what I want to do is maximize the group of people that I do have while I'm still growing. So I have coaching goals, and then I still have like one more goal I think I got to do until I can't retire until it happens. Like, it got to happen. I was like, I need me and 2 of my other athletes standing in the top 3 circle for a group picture. I don't care who wins it, as long as all 3 of us is up there in the group picture. Like, I think that drives me a lot. I think, like I said, I think what keeps me hungry on top of that is just like that fire between second place. It's like, as long as I'm right there, I'm like, y'all can't get rid of me yet. Like, I'm still right here. And then there were so many things I could have changed about my last year prep that would have made me come in a lot better. So I think once I have a prep, I'll say this out loud, because you know this is the truth. Once I have a prep that I'm 100% on, I give my all to that prep, I think I could walk away. But until then, I can't, because I never had a prep where I gave everything to the sport 100%. So, yeah.
I like transparency. Yeah, I like that part that you said about the rewarding part of coaching and you being very motivated and fulfilled by your athlete's success. I think that's really inspiring for a lot of people, because I know for me, and I know for Will, it's like, I would say like competing is fun and I enjoy it, and I love my own bodybuilding journey, but there's nothing more rewarding than helping somebody with their own bodybuilding journey and seeing their success. Like, for me, that's more fulfilling most of the time than my own competing. Like, I enjoy competing for sure, but like the high of seeing somebody else's success that you had a small part in helping them get there is like extremely rewarding.
Yeah, I don't get nervous for myself at all. I get terrified for my clients. Everyone's like, how do you feel? I feel great. Like, there's no stress here whatsoever. I'm going to go out there and have a good time. But then if my clients are battling it out for those top spots, I mean, I'm just sat there just, the MC's announcing 5th place, 4th place, 3rd place. It comes down to the final 2, and it's your client and someone else, and you're like, oh man, I can't barely watch this.
Yeah, it's stressful. I think it's like, because like in your head how you feel, but you know how your client's handling the stress of being backstage or sleeping the night before the show or things like that. Like, you kind of know where you're at mentally, but you don't necessarily know where your client is. So you're like in the back of your head, like so anxious about how they're going to handle the whole thing.
I think it just shows you care. I mean, it's like, it just shows you actually really care about the athlete. It's hard to care much about yourself, but when you've been responsible for helping someone else get to that position, and it's not the only marker of success is winning, because some people can have great preps and they don't really care about winning. They just want to be better than they were the last time, and that's great. But you do feel a level of responsibility to get them super competitive and get those top spots in competition, so.
Yeah, I think it's also because it's like, I know if I lose, how I'm going to react. Like, I'm going to go out here, shake hands, smile, kiss yes. and walk on stage. But I do not know how they're going to react. So
yeah, do not make me look bad, please. Yeah.
So, but I think everybody handles it completely different, like handle wins and losses differently. I mean, I also don't know how they're going to act when they win. Like, you never know. They might come out dancing and doing all this other stuff. So I think it's one of those things of like, you can control your own emotions, but you never know what emotions that they're going to go through. Because a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people put a lot into the sport where a loss is a failure to them. So they don't know that, hey, the sun's going to come up tomorrow. Like, you're going to be fine. I promise you, nobody's going to think about this show a week later. And then your family doesn't even care what place you get in.
Exactly.
But to them, they feel like they failed everything or they had all this high pressure. And I used to think that way too. So I was just like, I kind of know for a new athlete standpoint, like they're banking on anything but first place is a failure to them most of the time.
Yeah. I think that's a maturing thing in the sport as an athlete. It's like when you first get into it, you're like, it's all or nothing, like win or lose. Like if I don't win, I'm a failure. But it's like the longer you're in it, you realize, like I said earlier, like only one person's gonna win. So you can't be doing it. You can't be doing this sport for the first place trophy directly. Like it's a byproduct of the process. But it's like if that's your full intentions, then you're going to be disappointed. But I think the longer you're in it, the more you just learn that, like, the bodybuilding process is what you should be enjoying. And like, if you happen to win, you win. But like, there's so much more you can get out of the sport than just a trophy.
Facts.
As you have all those trophies in the background.
Right. Yeah. It's easy to say when you won. It's easy to say when you won.
It's just a little bit.
Let's take a look.
Show them off real quick.
That's awesome. Hold up the Yorton for us.
Which one?
The Yorton, first place, man. Come on. Look at that. And his name is, see, that's a legacy that nobody can ever take away right there.
Hold on,
first place. Oh, beautiful. Eric, man, you've been awesome. I feel like we could chat to you for hours. But we gotta kind of wrap this thing up. I'm sure we'll get you on again later down the line and talk about some other things. If there's any closing thoughts that you want to leave people with, please feel free.
Closing thoughts is, of course, I'm pretty sure this will be out before the posing clinic. So yeah, enroll to the posing clinic. I'm pretty sure, hopefully. So yeah, posing clinic. But yeah, if you need any help with coaching or posing, my Instagram is right here, E_Shelton, or you can head over to my website at eaglestrength.com. All the same handles for Instagram. So yeah.
Awesome. You're the man, Eric. We appreciate your time, and I'm sure our guests got a lot out of this podcast. So thank you, man. Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah,
thank you, guys.
All right. See you soon.
Yep.